Alrighty, everybody, welcome to another session with the Bullish Bears here. My name is Marziti, and tonight we're going to talk about fan lines and why, yes, I speak chart. Except for that's supposed to be an exclamation mark. Anyway, um, yes, I speak chart. We're going to talk about fan lines and charting tonight and how all that kind of stuff works out. So, time permitting, we'll talk about measured move and how to set up the measured move, the fact that there's measured moves inside of measured moves, and all that kind of different things. So we'll be looking at a lot of stuff there. It all depends on time. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Here we are. I am going to go ahead and post this right now in the Discord. This is the core for the. There's part of my problem. I'm on the wrong heads thing. That's part of the problem there. Austin, that may have been the issue right there. As I was on the wrong headset too. Anyway, these are going to be the magic numbers as we get into the fan lines and some very, very quick rules. Now I'm going to go over the nuances of it, but fan lines work on just about all time frames. Not every fan line is going to work. Part of what we're going to do is identify which ones work. All right. Here is the ES. I'm on the 5-minute chart, and so I've got today's actually, see, this is Wednesday night. So this is Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Friday, and Sunday night session. The first thing I'm going to do is I have to have a series of higher highs that are significant. Now let's talk about what does significant mean. And I'd say here this high clearly took out all these highs before it. This high did not. This is not a significant high because it didn't take out a lot of close by stuff. Close by. This high did. This high did. All right? That's what I mean when I say significant. So what I'm going to do, zoom in. I'm going to bring up my line tool. I'm going to go right there. And I'm going to go right here. Now, I could go to this one, or I could go to this one. I ask myself, which one is the more significant? And the truth is, this one over here is. As you can see, this was a big pull up away from the crowd, where this one just kind of moseyed on up and lollygagged around. So this is my more extreme high. So I like that. So there's a higher high. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do so that I do not lose track of my boundary lines is I'm going to change the color. Now I've got to find a significant low. Now, oh, and before I move on, let's do one thing. I want to mark this is my rightmost high of the 2 points I just marked. So I'm going to put a vertical line right here. That'll come in handy in just a moment. Maybe. We'll see. Now, I need a low. Here's a low, and here's a lower low. Let's see what happens.
Well,
There you are.
there I am.
Now, cool. What I want to see to validate these lines. The way I validate the line is I look left. So let's look at this. So what we've created here is a broadening formation, a series of higher highs to a series of lower lows. So here's this higher high. I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to follow this line back, maybe, and looky there. Quit. There. See that? That's historical of the line I just drew. That validates this line. All right. Now, those lower lows I drew were this one to this one. This is the lower one. So let me zoom in on this. And I'm going to put my vertical line on that lower low. Now, I want you to notice what's happened here. Let me zoom out. I have put a vertical line on my downward slope at the lowest low and on my upward slope at the highest high. Okay? That's very important. That is the full measured move extreme. Okay? Now, let's see if I can validate this line here. I drew this line from right here, from here to here. We go back left, here. It tagged it here, it tagged it here, it tagged it here. What if I go back in time? I don't know if there'll be, well, okay, I'm fully expanded here. So nothing back here. If I go back further in time, let's go back and see. Let's go back 30 days. And let's walk this back. I don't know if I'll touch that line or not. No. No. Okay. Well, it is what it is, and that's fine. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches on that line. I'm going to consider that a validated line. Remember, we validate it by looking left in the past to see if that is the line of interest. All right, any questions on this part so far from anybody? All right, so we've got our broadening formation. I've got this upward trend line based on a series of significant highs, and then I've got my downward line based on a series of significant lows, and I've gone back in time to validate these lines, if I can. This spot right here is called the vertex, V-E-R-T-E-X. This is the intersection of those two lines, and this will be from where every new line starts. All right. Now, before we can go any further, we've got to put our Fibonacci in here, or our measured move tool, or whatever it is that you use. This is one of my extremes. This is the lowest low. Here's my other extreme, the highest high. So we're going to put in from that low, lowest low in the set, the highest high in that set, and there is my measured move tool. Now, I've already set this up in quarters. You'll see that we're also going to do it in eighths. And if you go back over here and you look at the spreadsheet, whew, God, that's bright. I've got the quarters here in green, but we can also subdivide it into eighths. But let's just start with the quarters. And the reason that I say that is sometimes you don't need the eighths. What we're looking for is going to be the spread between the Fibonacci, between the fan lines. If the fan lines are too wide, then I've got to put in the eighths to get a little bit more granular. But I'm going to start with these 25s, with these quarters. Now, let me bring the whole thing in. A little bit more. Here's the vertex. Here, from the lowest low to the highest high, is my Fibonacci tool. Where am I going to mark? Now, let's take a look. We're now going to start drawing some lines. I'm going to draw from the vertex. I'll come over to the right. And I am going to follow the rightmost line. Notice I got two lines. I got one that was on the, in this case, it's the lowest low. Then I got the highest high. Other times it's backwards and the high may be on the left and the low on the right. It doesn't matter. I'm going to follow the line on the right. So let's just start marking this out a little bit. The line on the right. I am looking for this intersection right here between the move tool and the vertical line right there. From the vertex to the rightmost line, intersection here. Once you do this 2 or 3 times, it goes by really quick. Okay, now I'm going to do the ones on the bottom. Remember, there's 3 areas. There's the inside the measured move, then there's the area above it, and there's the area below it. So let's come to this 25% line, if I can get it. Got candles in the way. Let me come over here. There. I had to move my mouse over here to the right. This is my target, and I just had to get a little bit more granular with it over there because the candles, my Thinkorswim kept locking onto the candles. Now we'll do the 50. $75. Like I said, it goes pretty quick once you get going with it. There. Once I get this marked off, we'll talk just, I've got 2 more lines to do here. And then we'll go in and see if we need to do eighths. Okay, there we are. Now, this is historical between these 2 red lines. So let's go forward and see what happened. Oh my gosh, this is really busy. So okay. Now, we don't have a lot to work with here. We do see that the Fibonacci's are in the way here. So let me get rid of that for a moment. There. Well, no, it didn't do the whole thing at all, did it? Hang on. Let me just delete it. I can put it right back in. There we are. All right, so here are, now that red line, this red line's a 111 above and below the fib tool there. We're not paying attention to that. That's for the measured move stuff. So ignore that red line. Or no, excuse me. Sorry, that's on the fib tool. This was our original higher high line. So let's take a look. Let's kind of compress this area in. Here was our low. Here was our high. When did we start this chart? We started this chart here yesterday, the 10th, at 10 o'clock in the morning. We finished our measured move at yesterday at 125. So everything after this is derived. So let's look at what happened since. Here, chop, here. Now, if I had put in eighths, it would be right here. Does that make sense? If this is a quarter, then an eighth would be right about here. And we ask ourselves, do we need to put in the eighths? And the answer, to solve that, we go over here and we say, well, how wide is this? Well, this goes from 6807 to 6781. So it's 25, 30, not quite 30 points wide. And you could say, well, that's a little too wide. If you think that the gap between these lines is too wide, then you put in the eighths to get it more granular. If it's fine, then you leave it alone and keep life simple. So here we are. We probably hit about an eighth line here. Here we are. We're down to that fan line again. Let me go forward. We come up. Good solid moves for the most part, and stall. Fan line. Chop, 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 chop. Up we go a little bit. We're stalling. Remember, an eighth would put us right about here. Let's go forward. Break below, break above, break below, break above, and finally break. Here's that midpoint. Again, there's that eighth if we were to have drawn that in. Down here it goes. Up here it goes. 830 CPI right there. Is that today? 311, looking at the, yep. There it is. There's CPI right there. Now, would you have said to have taken a trade because it hit that line? We don't know on a report like CPI. It could have gone up to here. We don't know. We don't know. It validates the line, but we can't speculate on a report candle. We could have taken a trade here at 7 o'clock Eastern where you hit this line and you could have gone short. And you say, well, but how do you know? Well, okay, look left. It took out these highs right here. That's a little bit of liquidity. So that means they take their stops, take over their stops, and go back down. Number one. Number two, look where your stop is. Look how tight. Zoom in on that. If you'd have gone short on the trend line, 6813.5. And you're in this trade here, where's your stop? Whatever that is, 68, let's see. I'm going the wrong way. Let me pull that back out. And that high was 6806. So, wait, that's not right. That's not right. Hang on. The trend line was at 6804.5. The stop would have been 6806. Okay, there it is. 2-point stop. Very nice. All right, so let's move on in. Let's kind of crunch this back down. We had a little crunch down. So again, trend line. Here's that eighth. Right in here, you can see it hit it once. It hit it twice. And we can draw this in. Back down here, we break. Our eighth would be right about here. And our current downside target, 67.10. Well, what if we want to go ahead and put that eighth in? Let's just put that eighth in. All right. So let me first of all come back to my two here, my two vertical lines. Let's go to my tool, my fib tool. We'll go from there to here. Now I've got to modify my settings. Remember, I gave you over in the Discord a listing of all those settings. Well, first, before I do that, where is price now? Upper, middle, or lower quadrant? It is in the, actually it's in the lower. Hang on, I know this is really busy. We're in the lower quadrant, okay. Knowing that, fib tool, where are you? I need to get, there you are. There's no reason to do the other side. And actually my chart goes from 0 at the top to 1 below. All right, so let's just change this now. I have 1.125, 1.25, but we've already marked the 2.5, so I'm going to go to the next one, 3.75, which would be next in the sequence would be 1.5. We've already marked that one, so it'd be 1.625. We've already marked the 7.5, so the next one would be the 1.875. Turn all the rest of these off. Okay. Now you see the fib tool is moved down here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but hang on. I know it looks real busy when that fib tool is on there because you got lines on top of lines. So I need to see my vertex. They're on the left. Let's add our new lines in. Here, come here. We'll go to the 112. Here. The 137. Here. One here. Come on. And the 187 here. There. All right. Now let's get rid of the Fibonacci. There. Cleans things up quite a bit. Now let's go to the right and see. Oh, I didn't put enough in. Dadgummit. Okay. Well, boo hiss. Hang on. No rest for the wicked. It looks like I need to put the interior, some of the interior ones in. All right, turn that off. So we would have the 0.125, 0.3, 0.75, 0.625, 0.875. Unfortunately, I see, like with NinjaTrader, I can actually put all the 8s in for all 3 zones because I can have more than 15 lines. This is a limitation with Thinkorswim in that it only allows us 15 lines. But I can show you on NinjaTrader, for example, I can do substantially more. I can do 30, 40 lines if I want. But unfortunately here with Thinkorswim, I have to itemize the whole thing. Not itemize, I don't know where that came from, but anyway. Okay. Now, line tool. I have to, because I'm limited to 15 at a time. All right, let's fix this now. Rightmost line. Here is the... Oh, come on, don't do this to me. Let me come over here and then I can see if I can get it in. Yeah. I'm aiming for right here. Let me zoom in. But I'm aiming for this right here, but because all these candles are in the way and I keep locking onto them, I came way over here where there's nothing for me to lock onto and just put my eyes back here as far as what I was trying to do. All right, let's continue. What's the next one here? Here. We're adding this in, quite frankly, just for more granularity. Because the range is too big. There. All right. Now let's get rid of the fib tool again. And now let's go take a look at what happened. All right, let's just kind of zoom in here. All right, remember I talked about if this was an 1/8 or whatever. So here we are, bang, a little bit of chop, hits, comes here, down, breaks, retest, comes down, retests again, fib, fan, breaks down. Comes up a little short, comes down to the fan, goes to the fan, busts through, but not enough. There you go, fan to the tick. A little bit of chop here on the fan, and so on. You get the idea. Now, the other thing, you say, well, oh my God, there's so many fans. How could I possibly tell which one is the one? Austin, are we having a problem? I see you. This is so fascinating. Okay, cool. Good. Now, the way I'm going to start saying then, you say, well, there's so many lines. That's right. There are so many lines, and it can be really overwhelming. So one of the things that we can start to do is validating more of these current lines in here to say, well, it doesn't pay any attention to that one at all. And sometimes that happens. This line is definitely getting crossed over and over. But the question is not that it's just crossing it, but is it stalling on it? Like right here, it stalls. Here it stalls, chops on it. This is a good line. This line, look left. So we did see it got down here. Looky here. Let's watch this. And we can sit here and watch this and just kind of see, but let's take a look at what happened. It came down, tap, break, right? So I'm thinking, if it's bearish, here we go. 6709 is where we're headed. But that doesn't mean that we can't swing. Now, this is getting really into the minutia. But if this is an 1/8, then this would be a 16th. So you say, well, who keeps up with all this? And the answer is the algos. The algos do. They divide it and subdivide it and subdivide it and subdivide it. What do you mean subdivide it? Well, do you think if it works on the 5-minute, it would work on the hourly? There's the hourly. Right there. Fib line, or fan line. Boom, 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 boom. Well, could it work on the 4-hour line? Yeah. Let's try the 4-hour line. Well, the challenge with the 4-hour line is everything starts to really spread out because, obviously, of the vertex. But let's look. Let's look at this line. This line is clearly a chop line right here. We've got a lot of crossings and intersections with this one line right here. We've got to test down to this one. This one a little overextended here and so on. Okay, now, well, all that's kind of fascinating. Does anybody have any questions about this? But because I'm going to do this on the daily next. I'm going to wipe this out. And we're going to redo the same thing on the ES on the daily. Any questions on anything? All right. All right, here we go. Clear the drawing. Go to the daily. Starting all fresh and over. Okay. I got a high here and a high here. This high took out this high. Now, I didn't take out this one, but it took out all of this as well as that. So I've got a couple places I could start. Is this a qualifier? Well, not really. It did take out a little bit here, but there's a really good high real close to it, so I'm not going to count that one. It's too close. Here to here. Right there. First line. Let's validate it. We went from here to here. Let me put in my vertical line so I know where it is. There. Now, let me do this. See that? I've got to touch that. I've got to address that. Activate drawing. There. Just getting it to the tick as best I can. This one's good. Okay, so here's my 2 touch points here and here. Validate this line. Here, here, and, it might even go further back, but this is a year-long chart. So I got about 4 touch points. That's pretty good. So there's my higher high. Now I need my lower low. Let me zoom in a little bit here and see if we can find it. Well, right there it is. Would you agree that this low took out a lot of other lows? Did it take this one out? No. But did it? But it did take out this one and so on and so on. Did this one take out this low here? Yes, it did. Let's try that. I'm just going to drop it in. Come here. Oops, wrong tool. Let's see if it works. Remember, I find out if I validate it. All right, I don't know that I'm going to be able to validate this one because of where we are on the charts very easily, but let's just kind of see. Clearly, we see that we chopped on it here, nothing here, stopped on it here, 1, 2, 3. So there are definitely 3 points. I'm not so sure if I like it or not yet, but we will see. The problem is I don't have an easy way to validate it. Now, another way I could do this is I could come from this line to this high. Let's do that. Let's see if that validates any better. Right into the chop. Not enough data. Now, here's a problem. There's an immediate problem, and that is my vertex is on the wrong side. See, my starting line is here on the left, but my vertex is on the right. I can't have that. The vertex has got to be on the left. So I've got to do this. Here to here. Now the vertex is on the left. Put my vertical line on this candle right here. Okay, let's zoom in. Any adjustments? That one is to the tick. This one is to the tick. This needs to move just a little bit right there. Let's put our fib in. Here to here. Come on, Thinkorswim, work with me here. All right, and there's my vertex on the left. The vertex must be on the left. I'm going to get rid of this line here just because it's confusing sometimes. And let's start drawing. Remember, we're on the daily. We're seeing, does this work on the daily? Vertex. Here's the 75. Just because it's convenient. Wait, what happened here? Hang on. That. First of all, let me turn these lines to red so I don't lose them. There's the highest high. Here's the lowest low. Now let's try that again. Here. Oh, I see. It's that candle right there. I'm locking onto the candle. I'll have to work around it. That's fine. Let's come up here. There we go. All right, so we'll do these down here. 75. Where's that line? 50. $25. There. It's probably boring you guys to tears, isn't it? And there. Shrink that up. You gonna let me do that? Nope, you're not. Okay, so what I'll have to do is I'll have to slide the whole chart like that. I got to stay away from that candle wick. So our next line down here is the 75. There. Okay. If I need to draw in the 100, I will. Now let's go over here. All right, the 125. So we're asking, does this work on the daily? And I'm just using quarters. Okay. All right. Let's see. Can I get rid of the fib now? Let's get rid of the fib tool. Okay, here's our rightmost reference point. But as you can see, we came down, chopped on, went up 2, came down. This one to the tick, blah, 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 chop. So more choppy. But yeah, kinda. Kinda so. Now again, these are also on quarters. So if we did eighths, like this one here, looks like it would be on an eighth maybe. But let's validate and go back in time. Here, 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 here. See that one? That's a really nice line. And matter of fact, when I see a line that's got a real big history like that, I might come in and make it much fatter so it stands out as a very, very observed line. Let's see. Unfortunately, none of these historical lines here. Did we do? We did most. We just did the 75. We didn't do the 100. But if I did the 100 line, it would probably. All right, let's do it. Because I need to do it. Let's see. And that's going to be this from here, because I was having trouble getting it to work. Here to here. Give me 1 second. Looks like I'm off. I did do the 200, but something's off here a little bit. I'm not sure. Yeah, my drawings are off. I must not have drawn the same fib. Okay. Anyway, I did draw it though. So the point being though, now I could have continued to, went from 1 to 100. I could have gone from 100 to 200 by quarters and stuff like that if I wanted to see more in the past. So, what do we conclude about drawing all these fan lines? We know that they do react on them. We do know that we could possibly take trades, reversal trades, or targets. We could enter, like you could have entered a short here, and you could have a very tight stop, maybe. Here you've got, but again, we want to look at it in the context of things. This has got a very minor bearish slope to it. If you look at it, it is kind of sloping down. So I'd be looking for bear trades. So that might be this one. Could have been this one. If I'd have gotten in here, I'd have probably gotten stopped out. Same here, I would have gotten stopped out. Here, though, good trade. Now, granted, all that, if looking forward, let's go into the hourlies now. Remember, these lines were drawn on the dailies. Let me find my red line. It's not here on the 20 days. Okay. At least I don't see it. What is that? That's the monthly break. So let's look at this on the hourly. Let's just kind of start about a week or two ago. Here. Right there. Comes up, breaks above, comes down, chops on this, comes up, chopping on that. You see that? Chopping on it. Chop. Here's our basis line here. It came down. Would have hit that midline if we'd have drawn it in. Again, chopping on it. Did come up. There would be a midline here possibly. So what do we see here? Well, we see that the algos can just continue to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2 to continuously tighten up the angles. So this is just on quarters. Then we could have done eighths or sixteenths or 30 seconds. And you say, well, would you do a 30-second on an intraday chart? Well, no, that's too granular. That's like for every breath you take, you think there's a trade. That's too granular. You do have to have some space. Now, at this point, remember, this was drawn on the daily, but we're looking at it on the hourly, and that's 100 points between these two lines. So, yeah, an eighth line would make sense here. That way, at least it would be 50-point moves. Also take into context that we have to also remember it depends on how far back you drew the lines. Because remember, they are fan lines, and the further you move away, see how the spread gets wider and wider and wider? So we have to come in here periodically and update this. So you say, well, okay, that's great for the ES. I'm sure a lot of stuff follows that. Well, does it work for anything else? Tesla. I'm just picking Tesla. No particular reason there. It's a name, one of the first names that came to mind. Here. Looks a lot like the ES, actually, doesn't it? Here. Can't validate this line very easily. Let's see. Really can't validate this line. Oh, I'm on the daily. No wonder. What am I doing? What am I doing? Let's go down to the 15. And give me at least 10 days. And okay. Now. Two significant highs. Significant lows. All right. My vertical line goes here. And here. Fibonacci tool. Whatever you want to call it. Measured move tool. There. Remember, we're on the 15-minute. Oh, change the colors before I forget. Because if I make a mistake and I have to start deleting lines, sometimes I delete the wrong line, one of my reference lines by mistake. That's why I change their colors. Here we go. Wrong tool. Okay, over here on the right. 1. 2. Come on, work.
Marziti, just to recap, you need at least 3 touches, correct? Or does it matter? Or 2 or better?
A line is made with 2, but it's a weak line. Okay? It's a weak line. Sometimes that's all you got. There are times where that's all you got. But if I got a choice between 2 possible lines, I'm going to look for the one that's got more to the tick touches. Because that validates that line. Now, bear in mind also, I could have just as well drawn this line as my reference line somehow. I could have gone from right here maybe to here, and that would have, I don't know, that's not a very good line, spot for a line, but realize that this just as well could have been that red line instead. And then this one would be the derived line. It's all mathematics. That's the crazy thing about it. But the more lines I can find in the past that interact with it, the more validated it is to me that that is a valid line, that the algos are actually following it. And that's really what's important to me, is to identify what is it that the algos are following. All right, let's see. I need to scrunch this. All right, let's see. We did the 25. We'll do... Now, again, I'm only doing quarters here, so if there are eighths, we'll just have to kind of catch that in our own mind's eye. We can, of course, we can always draw them out, redraw it if we really, really want to, but it's obviously doubles the amount of work we have to do. All right. Here's the end of my measurement zone right here. Okay. There was no more sample data taking past this line, so everything to the right of it is derived. We agree? Like that one. Like that. Maybe. Look, let's get rid of the fib now. There it is. Fairly clean to see. Now, use your imagination. Where's the halfway between these two lines? Between this one and this one. All right. Here's a fan line. Here's a fan line. So we could kind of say right about here might be a fan line. So you can see how we chopped on that eighth. Now, if you really wanted to, you could draw in the eighths. Came down to this one, went up to that one, back down to this one. Tesla, observing. Now let's go historical. Let's go see. What do we see? Let's go behind the vertex. Right there. Some chop in this area here on this line here, maybe a little bit. Kind of went, not exactly dead on it, but okay. But you kind of see this move went from one fan line here. We went from one fan line to another fan line. And in fact, if we go back, we went from this one to that one, looky there, to this one, to that one. There's a midpoint. Remember, there's a half point here. Okay. So there is historical precedence to show that these fan lines work on Tesla. Apparently not as tight as the ES, but they work. We could probably do the same thing with Apple or whatever. You just have to get in there and do it. And remember, I'm mapping on the 15-minute, not the daily or anything, but you could certainly try this on the daily and see, and then you just sit back and say, did it observe? Did it respect the fan lines? So because it's all algorithms, and you can take 128 divided by 2 is 64, divided by 2 is 32, is 16, is 8, is 4, is 2, it's 1, it's a half, it's a quarter. So the algos can do this easily where we kind of stop and say, look, I'm not going any more than an eighth. Well, the algos might start on the daily, and they may go down to a 32nd because they can. They're algos. They can do computers. It's easy for them compared to us, right? Now, again, a fan line does not tell you a trend, nor does it tell you that it's, a fan line is a target, is a reference point. Can you trade on fan lines? I do. Myself, not every time, but a lot of times I do, but I'll also trade with the trend. For example, right here, what was our trend? Well, it was very bullish right here. So would I have gone short on this fan line? No. You say, well, but it hit a fan line. It's supposed to bounce. No, it doesn't have to bounce. The trend was, it came from sideways to a strong bullish candle. Now, I could have said I'm looking for a 50% pullback. In which case I'd say, look right here. There's that fan line. So if I was looking at it from a pullback kind of idea, sure. Then maybe I would have gone short. If I didn't have any other particular strategy, though, if we were just sloping, let me see. What else have we got here? Here. Would I have gone short here? Well, no. I've got no reason to go short. You say, well, there's a fan line there, but what is this? Bullish. So if I take a short here, that's counter trend. The odds of counter trends are much lower than a continuation. In fact, if we look at it and zoom in even closer, if you see it, you see a rally base. Did have a little drop, but the point is it broke, retest, bounce. That's the Busby kind of stuff that Signet talks about. All the more reason that would have been a long, actually. Once we found out that we were going to clear that trend line, resistance became support. Okay? Questions from anybody? Okay. Now, we are at almost 1 hour. I know Austin says, I've only got the attention span of about an hour, man. That's as much as I can do. Just picking on you, Austin. So, what we can do here is I can go on and talk a little bit more about measured moves, or I can do that in a separate video. Either one's fine with me. Measured move, yes, says Austin. Anybody else have a thought or a comment on this? It does not necessarily have to take an hour because we've talked. Separate video. Okay. Yeah, we can do that too. We can certainly do that too. So, any questions from anybody there about this? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it down. So, what do we know about fan lines? They work for some bizarre reason, right? And we can use them as take profit targets. We can use them, if we take them in context, as an entry. Now, accuracy in drawing your fan lines is very important. Accuracy is very important because the further they move away from the vertex, a half a degree off gets multiplied over and over and over the further away you get from the vertex. So we want to keep them as true as possible. Stuff like that. So, all right. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free. I will get this uploaded tonight, and we'll see what you guys want to do for the next video topics or whatever, be it measured moves or why is Kermit green? I don't know, but I'm sure there's some scientific explanation, that kind of stuff. So, with that in mind, last call for questions. I see some typing in the chat. We'll give that a second. All right, we'll wind it down here. This is Marziti with the Bullish Bears signing off. And folks, if you're not familiar with the Bullish Bears, we are a trading group, a very mature trading group. And we certainly invite you to come check us out over at bullishbears.com. I am not a moderator or owner, investor, or anything like that. I get nothing financial out of this. Other than the fact that I just enjoy teaching these videos and helping especially the new folks get started, because my background is in technical teaching. So And certainly, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop me a question in the Discord. That being said, this is Marzidi here signing off. Y'all be good. And if you cannot be good, at least be good at it. Bye bye.